like coming out from a parochial school and going into there. It's like, holy crap.
I mean, I'm nodding, like, I mean, I'm from Sebastopol, so all the schools were really small. There was never any private school in my world. But
what's small?
What do you mean?
How big?
What's the
like how
student
many
body
kids?
population?
Yeah.
I mean, in my, elementary, junior high, which was all one big school, there were probably about 400 of us.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty small.
And then high school was actually quite big because it's just covered such a big area, probably 1,000 kids, 1,100.
Oh, yeah, that's big.
My high school was like 2,000.
Yeah.
Our high school was something like 500.
There's nothing particularly bad about it. I just think that junior high and high school kids are horrible.
Well, that's everywhere.
So it's just, it's like it's a landmine just getting out of there sanely.
The problem with junior high and high school kids is they're made of people.
That's right. And there's hormones, there's confusion, there's cliques, all sorts of things. Like even stuff that like at the time I was like, that's just how the world works.
They're people who've learned just enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of fiefdom things that go on in high school, very annoying.
And college and the workplace.
College, I avoided them
homes.
because I went to state
graveyard.
Teenagers are just
state's a commuter school, so you don't really stay.
I mean, part of the reason that I went to San Francisco State was because the concept of college and like fraternities and like weird roommates and just it frightened me. And I was just like, I want to go to a real college, but like live in an apartment and have a job.
Illinois Wesleyan recruited me, brought me up for a weekend, and not made me, but the idea was like, buddy up with an actual student and they'll show you a good time. And I ended up not enjoying it at all because it was, a frat.
Right.
And they had a party and I had to sleep on a couch. And I was like, this is not,
I don't want to do this.
This is not fun. This is not fun for me at all.
None of that appeals because I don't drink. So it's like there's nothing appealing about half the stuff.
I was talking to a friend of mine. He's from Virginia, so I don't know. Long ways away. But
lovers.
But he was like, "Oh yeah, I joined a fraternity, and they made us like sit in like big buckets of ice, and like
long before it helped ALS.
And like, haha, standard hazing stuff." And I'm like, "But why would you say yes?"
Yeah,
I would just be like, "I'm not doing that."
Because you're desperate to fit in and become part of the
brotherhood. See, that's what makes me sad.
I know.
I hate that stuff. Like the desperation to fit in is like. That can't be like the social constructs that we.
But in some campuses, it's amazing. Like a couple of friends went with the campuses where 60-70% of the campus was in a fraternity or sorority. So all of the social life, the
University of Illinois was more like 70 or 80 when I was there.
Yeah, I just remember being blown away like that because it was funny because one of my closest friends pledged a frat, and when I would come to visit, I'm like. I live in the Lower East Side. I have a black leather jacket. I am punk rock. And he'd be like, will you wear these things from the J. Crew catalog? And
go in disguise?
If you want me to blend, ask me to blend. Don't be like, this sweater would look really good on you.
All right, y'all. Ready to do the show?
Name on it?
I'm ready.
No.
Let's do it. Here we go.
The Daily Tech News Show is supported entirely by patrons like me. To learn more, visit dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, November 15th. Is it the Ides of November 2017? I'm Tom Merritt in DTNS headquarters in Los Angeles.
And from Studio Feline at the beach, I am Sarah Lane.
And joining us from far, far away in the East Bay wilds of Northern California is Patrick Norton. How's it going?
I am full of mirth and good cheer. How are you?
Of course, host of Tech Thing. If you didn't know that, go find it out. TEKTHING. Our producer, Roger Chang, is here as well.
Greetings.
Salutations, Roger. Patrick's going to help us figure out whether we should buy a 4K TV or not and which one to buy. But let's start with a few tech things you should know. This one big. Microsoft announced it's joining the MariaDB Foundation. That is If you don't know what that is, it sounds like it's, fighting a disease. MariaDB oversees development of the MariaDB database, which is kind of like saying PIN number, but I get it. MariaDB is a fork of MySQL, created in 2009 to guard against Oracle closing off MySQL, which seems like it's creeping towards doing. People still fear that. Microsoft said it will soon offer a preview of Azure Database for MariaDB.
Square is letting some users test buying and selling Bitcoin in the Square Cash app. The test seems centered around actually buying and selling Bitcoin rather than sending and receiving them. I actually checked mine, and it does not appear that I have this capability just yet, but any day now.
Come on, Square.
Bitcoin that I don't have to sell.
Microsoft is introducing live sharing to Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. It's kind of like Google Docs for code, or I guess Microsoft would call it Office Online for code. It allows more than one person to work on code at a time and see each other's cursor and changes. They can even share debugging, and everybody keeps their own key bindings. That weird Vim guy can just keep them. It's fine. Now here are some more top stories.
Google introduced new search features to help job seekers find work more easily and get more information like salaries for job postings or improved location settings or job application choices. And in a couple of weeks, the ability to save individual jobs as well. If you're wondering, well, how does Google know who's offering what salary? The company says it's calculating salary numbers from sources like Glassdoor and PayScale and LinkedIn. This isn't like super revolutionary, but it's akin to me like choosing, in a Google search, like LAX to this city and just getting like a standard idea of like what things cost and where they're coming from and what airlines I can choose. So I like this.
These sort of things always give me mixed feelings because on the one hand, the current job search situation out there is sort of a mixed bag. LinkedIn's pretty good, actually. But then there's, still the monsters.com and all of those and Glassdoor. And so somebody bringing it all together and making a unified search, which is what Google's supposed to do as a search engine, is great. Having Google once again take over something that was done by others, as they have tried to do with, like you said, travel search, gives me a creeping bad feeling because I don't want them doing everything.
But I mean, they're not. It's an aggregation of stuff that they still need these other companies for.
Okay,
right?
As long as
it's not like Google's like, let me kill Glassdoor. It's like, no, we need data in order to give you salary information.
Patrick, does this worry you?
I feel like Google is eventually going to take over everything, or Google or Facebook.
So that's a yes.
On one hand. Yeah, I mean, I hear what Sarah's saying. Like, they need all of these third-party services, but it seems like Google's like, well, we'll just use a little bit of your data, and then it's just, we added and then they add just enough features to make their thing more popular because oddly enough, it works out really well in the search rankings. And then as the other companies suffer and fall along the way, they administer this like headshot death kill. And all you have left is a Google service that may or may not actually be maintained. Like Hangouts.
This is different than travel because travel, they bought the company that kind of underpins the search. In this case, they really are doing what you said, Sarah. They're looking out and saying, okay, what's out there? Let's make it easier to access. And if they stick to that, that should be okay.
I mean, I think that, and maybe I'm pessimistic and maybe it's just the line of work that we're in, but I don't, getting a job is like, it's not just like, I'd like this job. Let me look on Google and just find that job and then I'll get the job. It's like, doesn't really work that way.
I love that.
Yeah, that's why the salary thing is pretty good. Yeah. Kickstarter launched Drip. It's a new subscription-based funding product based on the company Drip that Kickstarter acquired back in May 2016. Instead of supporting a specific project, like Kickstarter does with an end date, subscribers can make a recurring payment to a creator. Sound familiar? It's like Patreon, Steady, Flatter, all of those. A Drip, I guess, can offer rewards to subscribers based on when they pledged, how much they give. There's a time-limited launch phase. This is one way Kickstarter's trying to differentiate themselves. They put a little Kickstarter magic and say the people who fund you in the first 30 days get to be founding members and have special rewards. Kickstarter's also emphasizing data portability, saying that creators control their subscriber lists and can import and export that data freely.
it surprises me, quite frankly, that Kickstarter didn't have anything that was closer to this until now. The idea of, I know that they acquired a company called Drip, so there's probably something like, we got to do something with that name, Drip. But it does sort of, I don't know how I like the sound of it. Like, I'm dripping you some money each month, but yeah,
maybe if you drip me some money, it will percolate up into my content.
Right.
And I can grind it out.
Thing. Got it. But no, it always sort of surprised me that Kickstarter and something like Patreon, which of course DTNS uses, worked so differently. So, and Kickstarter is a big name brand as far as this sort of thing goes. So,
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to using Drip 2. Because we did try Flatter for a little bit. The problem is you need to focus, right? You can't have too many ways or none of them get enough momentum behind them. So that's going to be Kickstarter's issue. And what they've tried to do is say, hey, we got these big name people on board. Look at them using our platform. You should use them too. But right now it's invite only. So you can't sign up unless they tell you to.
Shall we go to America's Hat, everyone?
I don't know. Patrick, did you have one more thought?
I thought it was interesting that Kickstarter's basically, they've said they've converted themselves to a public benefit corporation so that they never go public and never sell the company, and that, it's all going to be about the creators and the employees. I'm really curious to see how that works out, because I know myself included, a lot of people when Patreon took $60 million and there's a choking sound. Because traditionally, when people take a tremendous amount of money from a VC, it ends up at some point being all about short-term gains over everything.
And the public benefit company has been used by a few other startups to try to defend against exactly that thing.
I remain curious.
To the hat.
To the hat. Amazon launched Echo speakers, Prime Music, and Amazon Voice Services in Canada. So we've got a new English voice with a Canadian accent, part of the launch. However, this is going to be a sticking point for a lot of Canadians. No French support as of yet, but it does feature skills from Air Canada, TD Bank, TELUS, the CBC, Manulife, and around 10,000 other apps. So the Echo, Echo Plus, and Echo Dot are on sale for $100, $170, and $50. Those are Canadian dollars, respectively, shipping December 5th. So Canada joins Amazon Echo's existing market of the US, Germany, and the UK, Japan, and India.
Well, first of all, Canadians often feel like things launching in their country either doesn't happen or doesn't get covered. So here you go. This is a big launch. I find it odd that they have a Canadian version of The Voice.
Listen, I know that,
I don't think
there's regional differences, but it's not like
you're not going to hear
pick out a Canadian person, but
add that to the shopping list. Okay, eh?
It's not wildly different.
It's enough, I think, for them to feel that they've added that extra polish for the local population.
Would you like to spend Canadian Tire bucks on that?
This is where this whole thing goes sideways, because Americans can't help but make Canadian jokes.
Yeah.
Where the Canadians we just want French support.
Well, the Quebecois want French support. Large striking parts of the Canadian population could really give a rat's posterior.
It's very
tutti
true.
is the French word, I believe. Yeah.
So, there was an email that came into the DTNS mailbox earlier today from a very nice Canadian man who had kind of gone into detail about how French is a really big deal, official language. So, I like to keep that in mind.
Definitely. All right. Apple will give limited help to the Indian government to develop an anti-spam app for iOS after initially refusing over privacy concerns. This, according to sources talking to Reuters. Government app was launched on Android last year, but Apple pushed back because of requests for an iOS version that it felt would compromise privacy. The app would allow iPhone users to report unsolicited marketing texts or calls as spam. Apple doesn't want the government to be able to have access to the call log. It's the slippery slope argument, which is hey, if Apple made this and said you can have access to the call log so you can block the spam and go through your call log and hit those numbers, the user is going to say, great. If the Indian government is cooperating on an app that the Indian government has access to, which can access your call log, a lot of people start to get a little freaked out, Apple included, that the government could access everybody's call logs.
I don't know. I mean, I know that I'm sort of in a minority here because I don't care if anyone's listening to my calls because they're so dumb. It's like me making a hair
It's not listening to your calls. It's knowing who you called and then, maybe deciding something about you that isn't true based on your call log. Or some people are just like, it's none of their business. Why do they get to know?
And that's true. But it's like, my spam, my text spam, and certainly my call spam has gotten so out of control over the last, I don't know, 12 to 24 months that I just barely answer the phone anymore because it's just all robocalls from like weird spam companies. So it's like, well, I'd like to not get those either. So I can see, if this was a huge issue in India that they were trying to crack down on, that this would be something that you might have to, make a concession for.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's tough because the reason you're running into the spam issue and the reason I'm sure the same thing's happening in India is because there's a relatively unlimited pool of numbers they can spoof when they're calling you.
Yeah.
So you can be like, I blocked that number. Haha. Well, they only have 7 million other ones to choose.
Right.
That's exactly the problem in India right now. Yeah.
Colorado's Department of Transportation and Brogan Bambergens, Arrivo, yes, that's a real person's name, Brogan Bambergen, are exploring ways to use vacuum tubes to alleviate congestion and speed transport across the city of Denver. So this is similar to Elon Musk's Boring Company project, cars sitting on a sled, and also similar to Elon Musk's other Hyperloop idea, the sled shoot through a tube at up to 200 miles an hour. So the claim is that we can cut the 4-hour-long trip from Denver Airport to downtown.
1 hour. Just a 1-hour-long trip.
Oh, the hour-long trip. Why did I say 4? Sometimes it seems like 4.
Seems like
Have you ever been to Denver Airport? It's really out in the middle of nowhere.
It feels like 4. You're right.
Downtown to 10 minutes. Arrivo plans to build a test track alongside the E470 toll road, which runs between the Denver Airport and downtown, and promises to hire 200 employees by 2020.
So it's not depressurized like a Hyperloop. It's just kind of separated, which I guess makes it easier to get up to 200 miles because they could go faster if it was actually the Hyperloop, tube. But
it's not that. Okay. So having been in the Denver airport, both the old Denver airport and the new Denver airport, the new Denver airport used to be a lot farther outside of town, but Denver has grown so much in the last 10, 15 years. It's growing at like 10,000 people a month right now. So, with all due respect, like, great, you'll have a short trip to the airport and then you'll be stuck in the same delete expletive lines or traffic jams everywhere else in Denver. But it's still so much, even the worst, like Denver at its worst is still so much better than LA or the Bay Area or New York City at this point. It's great that they're sort of trying to get ahead of the curve on this, but I don't think the majority of Denverites are going to be benefited that much from avoiding.
No, this is for the secret people that come to the secret underground thing that's under the Denver airport.
Right.
That would be my understanding.
I just like the trains in Denver. Denver has trains that work. Like, why start digging holes in the ground?
Well, I actually get, like, having gone to Denver on business and having had to go from the Denver airport to downtown and back and that kind of be the only thing. I get this would have been great, but you're right. It doesn't benefit the entire populace of Denver. Although they could, like, once they've built this, they may say, oh, and now we can put it here and that'll help people get across town in their cars because car goes on a sled. That's interesting. Anyway, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. We just give you the download. Sarah did it this morning. Go check it out right now at dailytechheadlines.com or get it on your Amazon Echo as a flash briefing in the Anchor app or on Google Home.
Do it.
Do it now. All right, Patrick, 4K TV. A lot of people are going to want one this holiday season for various reasons. We'll get into that in a little bit. But what should they look for? What are the things that they should avoid on the box? What are the pitches they should avoid from the salespeople? And what are the things that are important to get?
Okay, so the shortest possible, least traumatic version of this is that a lot of affordable 4K TVs suffer from really crappy panels. really mediocre panels, and you can calibrate them and fix them to a certain bit. But I think the shortest version is if you need an inexpensive 4K TV or you're ready to buy a new TV, 4K is the new 1080p. It just is what it is. All the manufacturers are moving everything over to 4K. You know, when you're thinking about 4K, it's like 1080p, but with more pixels, and your 1080p content's going to scale on it and look really, really good. The real advantage to 4K is not that it's like, oh, there's more pixels, which really isn't a particular advantage unless you're like this close to the monitor, in which case 4K and 8K is really awesome. But at a normal living room distance, 1080p looks fine. The real advantage 4K has is HDR content, which is slowly coming out more online. Like, you know, Netflix, a lot of their new stuff that they shoot themselves is HDR, and the high dynamic range stuff, that looks really amazing, because when you're in dark scenes, it's like, oh, you see so much more of the detail in the dark, scary scenes. And in really bright scenes, you see so much more of the detail in the really bright scenes. That's the real big advantage to 4K, is getting access to HDR content. Probably the best right now, like Robert Heron. I do a podcast called AV Excel with Robert Heron. You know, the favorite, like Robert's favorite, the Wirecutter's favorite, pretty much everybody's favorite affordable 4K TV right now comes from TCL, which half the population still has never heard of. But that's the 55P607 55-inch 4K Ultra HD Roku Smart LED TV 2017 model, because, you know, Amazon. And it's amazing. It's like $650 and it looks really, really good.
So it's a good panel, because TCL is a bargain brand, right?
TCL is a bargain brand, but this is a particularly nice panel from TCL. What's unfortunate is they originally said they were going to do some larger versions, but this one exploded in popularity, and I don't think they could get the glass to do the larger versions on that. Is that video download helper for Firefox? I love that. The other nice thing about it, squirrel. The other thing that's really nice about it is they're using Roku as their television operating system. And one of the questions we get constantly is, how do I get a dumb monitor? And it's like, well, spend $15,000 for a commercial editing monitor that's designed for LA television studios. And other than that, you basically can't. You know, all television. Go ahead.
We were talking about this in the DTNS bosses Slack earlier, right. And my response to them was, the OSs aren't as bad as they used to be. You just want to make sure you get one with a decent OS. Is that fair?
No, I'd say I was actually tormenting Robert Heron earlier this year, and I was like, it's just time to give up on all the OSs, because even on the incredibly expensive televisions, it seems like if you're lucky, you get like a year or 18 months, and then they either switch operating systems or redeploy their engineers or whatever happens. Like, basically buy a Roku, buy an Apple TV, buy an Amazon Fire TV, plug it into HDMI port 1 or HDMI port 2, and then forget about whatever operating system came on the television, except to add updates for security and or additional
Well,
features.
what we were talking about in Slack is not using the smart TV system, which I think everybody agrees, like, I'm not going to do that, but having it crash and reboot and not work even as a dumb monitor. That's kind of gone away, no? No?
Yes, I would say, I mean, the monitors, all the televisions seem to be stable at this point. You know, at least the ones we've run into. I have not tested all the televisions because there's too many brands, they all seem to be like literally, I would say, like, buy the television, update it when there's an update. You know, if you're feeling brave, or if everything's working, don't fix it until it breaks. And then, you know, literally plug a Roku into it, plug an Apple TV into it, you know, plug an Amazon Fire into it, especially with Movies Anywhere, which unfortunately is not 4K or HDR, but Movies Anywhere, if you guys haven't played around with it, it is the weirdest thing to be like, I am on an Android device watching my iTunes content thanks to the miracle of Movies Anywhere, and it cross-pollinates all of your movie titles across all of your different services, which I obviously am still finding mind-blowing, you know, several weeks after first loading it up and being like,
and when he says all, he means movies. It's not going to bring your music over. That's a whole different thing.
Not going to bring your music over, not going to bring your television shows over yet, but it's still kind of like, hey, my 60 iTunes titles are showing up over here and over there and anywhere I want them to be. This is really cool.
So TCL or a Roku OS operated TV, what about, those are LCD options mostly. What about OLED?
So if you want to buy OLED, the big kind of secret bargain right now, or kind of the super cool trick, right? So there's the TCL for $650 and for a 55 inch is about as good as it gets. To get a larger LCD flat panel, you're going to have to do some hunting around because they've been changing a lot. What's crazy is when you look at LG's OLED series, you know, the W7, the G7, the C7, the E7, pretty much all their lineups are the same as their entry-level B7. So all of their OLED TVs basically use the same glass, you know, are fed by, you know, really, really quality processing. So, you know, yeah, you may not have, you know, $8,000 for the 65 inch LG signature OLED, you know, the wallpaper, the W7 series, but you're basically, by going with a plastic back and a clunkier base, you're basically getting the same glass and processing on the like $2,000 television in the B7 series.
And is there enough of a difference between OLED and LCD to warrant it if you have the money?
If you have the money, the color is going to be much more amazing on the OLED. You know, whether or not you care is an entirely different thing. But, you know, if you're like, I own several hundred Blu-rays and I'm really into the cinema experience, I sit down and I become enmeshed in the movie. Yeah, if you got $2,000, I would definitely consider buying an OLED over the LCD. Or I'd guide you towards a projector, but 4K projectors are really, really expensive right now, although they've come down vastly in price. But for me, ever since I bought a Oppo projector refurbished from Woot like 7 or 8 years ago, I have been all about like, I have a 100-inch screen and I will never go back to an LCD or an OLED panel. But that's just me.
So if you're in the 4K, literally the HDR game, you probably aren't going to go projector yet. You're gonna hang in there for something better. Yeah. It sounds like.
I mean, you can get sort of, you know, I call it mock 4K, but essentially by doing some really cool stuff, they can get 4K resolutions out of projectors that are technically not 4K.
Faux-K.
With all due respect to the Feline Studios, but they look really amazing, and they're down to, you know, $2,000-$3,000 instead of like $8,000 to $12,000 to $20,000 to $40,000 like they were last year. But technically, they're not true 4K. Whether or not you can actually see the difference between a true 4K projector and, you know, one of the inexpensive ones from Epson probably has a lot to do with your eyeballs and how much time you spend examining really, really obscure color issues.
So TCL on the LCD front, LG B7 if you want to get a decent OLED for your money on that front. Anything else?
You know, the Sony Bravia, the XBR65A1E. You know, if you scroll down a couple pictures of this one, the best part about this is it's got a kickstand. And if you're living in your open loft space and you want to put the television in the corner, this is really slick. It also does something pretty amazing where they've essentially turned the flat screen itself into a speaker, a big giant flat speaker that radiates the center channel towards you, which is particularly delightful when you're watching conversation heavy stuff on the screen. It's really, really nice.
Sound comes from their mouth practically. That's cool.
Yeah. And they're Sony, so they do some really fantastic processing on that. But, you know, this is not an inexpensive television, and that price looks a little higher. I think that should have been that may be a temporary.
Yeah, we're looking at Amazon right now, and it shows $4,000 basically. So you might be able to find it cheaper than that.
Yeah, I going into Black Friday, by the way, keep an eye on Camel, or other price tracking. Although Amazon's been apparently doing some stuff where they sort of magically create new entries for certain products to eliminate the Camel data. But if you're thinking about buying something, check the prices now so you know whether or not the Black Friday deal is actually a deal.
A deal or not. All right, before we move on, because we're getting close to the end here, the ultimate question for a lot of people is, do I need 4K yet? And there are people out there who are like, yes, I need it. I'm buying Blu-rays in 4K, or or Ultra HD, or I've got Netflix in 4K and I really want to watch it. But for most people who are still asking, is there a short answer?
If your television works, if it's 1080p and your television works, don't fix it. Wait until it's time to upgrade, because you're always going to get more image quality or bigger screens for less money the longer you wait.
So and it used to be, don't bother with 4K. If you need to get a new TV, just get a really nice 1080p. Now it's different. Now it's, if you need a new TV, go ahead and get one with HDR. Make sure you get one with HDR. Not that there are too many that aren't.
But that's a big one. Like, especially if you're looking like, oh, last year's model is really inexpensive. Well, if last year's model doesn't have HDR, don't buy it.
All right. So, hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com and at facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. On to the mailbag, and David from the home counties in England writes, "Hi Tom, Sarah, and Patrick. As a Nexus/Pixel phone devotee who used Face Unlock a few years ago but has now abandoned it, I have no personal experience with Apple's new Face ID. Is it very dissimilar from what Google and Samsung have been doing for a while now? If no, surely these issues with children unlocking phones are issues that other manufacturers would already have encountered years ago. Sarah is right that there's a risk that children might log into their parents' phone and max out their credit card. But on the other hand, I know enough parents who'll accept that risk just so they can tell themselves that they still look like a teenager because their kids look like them, I guess. No, it's a great question, David. So I went and found an excellent write-up from Jerry Hildenbrand at AndroidCentral.com. If you really want to know the answer, dig into this, and he did a fantastic job. Android uses front-facing camera and facial recognition. It's not doing depth sensing. Samsung has improved its facial recognition a little, but mostly just by making it work faster and starting to capture your face faster. A little better camera, a little better CPU. Those can be defeated with printed photos. You can print out a photo of somebody and defeat that. So they're not even billed as secure, even though they're securely stored on the phone. They're not billed as a real security measure. It's more of a convenience measure. Now, Samsung also offers the iris scan. That's a little more secure. It uses a diode with near infrared and a second camera, a narrow focus camera. Samsung did balance convenience with security. Like a really secure iris scanner could take up to 10 seconds. They're like, most people won't put up with that. So they made it a little less accurate in order to make it faster. And because of that, a high-res photo and a contact lens, you may have heard, we talked about this on the show, can defeat that. All the above require you to learn where you position your head, too. They make you think like, oh, right, I have to have it here. Apple uses infrared light, kind of like the Samsung iris scanning, but combines that with the LED lasers to collect depth and the neural engine to interpret stuff. And I have to say, I've been using it, for a couple of days now. It really is fast. I don't realize it's working. I don't have to think about it. So there's your difference between these. And I don't know that I would still say Apple is secure in that you can use it to, fully rely on securing everything, but it probably is for most people. As long as you're not a, billionaire businessman like Patrick and Sarah.
I can't really weigh in on this because of how wealthy I am.
You have someone to open your phone for you.
Yes. So hard to get a good servant's face.
I've made all these clones, so I'm just a real different test case. But no, I mean, David makes really good points and good research project, Tom.
Oh, thank you. I just looked up Android Central and read their article. They did all the hard work. So go check that. We'll have that link in the show notes as well. Patrick Norton, thank you so much for joining us. If folks don't know, you can find Patrick along with Shannon Morse at techthing.com. It's TEKTHING.com. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, AV Excel. What you got going on at either of those or both these days?
Oh my goodness. Has my phone suddenly exploded? Sorry.
People are so excited about these shows. They're calling in right now. How can we get on?
Blowing up. Oh my goodness. Well, AVXL, especially if you're thinking about upgrading your home theater, we talk about speakers and headphones and amplifiers and just basically giving you a better audio or video experience. We don't care what your budget is. You got 80 grand, we'll help you spend it. You got, $300 in a dorm room, we'll get you going. But Robert Heron and he was out for a couple weeks and do some family stuff and just got back. I'm actually playing around. I'm doing my, every 5 years, I play around with turntables and vinyl to try to find the magic in the analog experience. And mostly I've found that there's a lot more noise in analog recordings than I remember because it's been so long.
Yeah, Ian Morris and Nate Langston had a little mini argument about this on the text message show last weekend because Nate's a big fan of vinyl, but Ian throws down the studies that show that there aren't as many bits in vinyl as there are, and it's all a placebo effect and this and that. So it is a lot
of cognitive bias and audio.
It's a never-ending story.
You did a whole bunch of. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
We did a whole bunch of gaming stuff. One of the new Alienware G-Sync monitors, that review is coming out on Tech Thing this week, and a silent MX Red Cherry MX Red keyboard what does silent actually mean when you're talking about a mechanical keyboard, and there's other stuff in there.
Go check it out, techthing.com, avxl.com. And don't forget, we need your help picking one of our holiday specials. There's 22 hours from the moment I'm recording this, so if it's already over by the time you listen, I apologize. But get in there and vote on what our last holiday special will be. We'll do the listener co-host, the predictions show, the predictions results show, and what else you decide. Patreon.com/DTNS.
Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Thanks for all the feedback that we get, by the way. It's been a lot of fun absorbing it. We are live from Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern or 21:30 UTC at elfgeekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com.
Back tomorrow with Justin Robert Young. Talk to you then.
Woo.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
You know what, Diamond Club? I really have.
I've enjoyed this program.
I have too.
I think we all have, in our own ways.
Did you know that Wesley Snipes wrote a supernatural thriller novel?
I had no idea.
Neither did I until I got this PR email. It's called Talon of God. This might be your next
Sword laser.
I wonder if he wrote it when he was on the run from the IRS.
Is it sci-fi or fantasy?
They call it a supernatural thriller novel.
So it could be fantasy, stretching, but
I don't know any more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the website.
Talon
of God.
Which means God is a giant bird.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah. Which is,
AKA
I always suspected
a dinosaur.
that.
All right. Showbutt. Of course, this would be one of the top ones.
This seems in your wheelhouse.
A legit book.
Urban fantasy. Holy warrior must convince a doctor without faith to help stop a powerful demon and his minions from succeeding in creating hell on earth. A thrilling adventure of science and faith, good and evil, damnation and salvation.
People have been wondering when the urban fantasy genre was going to finally run out of steam.
Is that really a genre?
Oh, yeah. No, Twilight kicked off the urban fantasy craze. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know Twilight would be considered urban fantasy.
Yeah.
Even though it was mostly rural. It's because urban, I think they suggest, is when it's mostly within like a city, contemporary city setting, right? Like if it was like London back in the 18th century, that wouldn't.
I hadn't actually thought about this. What's rural fantasy?
That's what I just would not consider Twilight.
I would say something really bad right now, so I won't say anything.
Vampire farmers just trying to get a crop in.
So
all right, so titles.
He was a small town werewolf.
A is for the name of Amazon Echo. Dripping money. Kickstarter drips into Patreon's house. A lands into Canada. A.
We just did that one. Come on, people. Huh? We just did A in the title for Canada.
Mile High Perloop. No Way Faux K. Oh, I like that. No Way Faux K.
Faux K. F-A-U-X. No Way Faux K. Yeah, that's not bad.
Patrick, does this worry you? Kickstarter drips on Patreon's parade. 4K's new 1080p. Google stop making things better. Bitcoin is so square. Would you like to spend Canadian Tire bucks on that?
I hear Sarah
Rocky
yelling.
Mountain Hyperloop. Huh?
Is Sarah yelling?
There was enthusiasm in the front of the building. I can ask.
Oh, I'm not yelling. I'm just sitting here.
Wrong, Sarah.
Wrong, Sarah.
It was
Story of my life. Which Sarah are we talking about? There's always 4 in the room.
Okay.
I've become abundantly aware of how many Patrick Nortons there are in the U.S., since at least one of them seems to give my Gmail address as a default for all of his receipts and stuff.
So no way 4K or 4K is the new 1080p.
I like 4K is the new 1080p.
Patrick, what do you like?
Works for me.
Sarah, what do you like?
I like the 1080p one.
Done. Sold. Carried. Motion carried.
It was. I mean,
Vintage.
that was a very informative part of the show.
It was.
Oh, thank you.
It's funny.
As
It's like
intended.
I think Roger and I had agreed on this a couple of weeks ago, where it's like I can really forgive mediocre video as long as the audio is really good.
Mm.
Yeah.
So like my home theater is like I've got these fancy speakers, and I'm very meticulous about like setting them up and the whole thing.
Good for you.
But 4K, I don't care about it at all.
Oh, that's so
The
funny.
resolution-
I'm the opposite when it comes to movies and TV. Like, I want the video to be good. Audio is I want it to be decent, but
It's
not
because
lower priority.
Sarah and I rolled out of the BAVAC program, or not BAVAC, out of the Becca program.
I did take classes at Bayback too, though.
Both.
But
Becca.
That's the thing that audio production told you. It's like, you video people, you don't understand. Audio is where it's at.
What's so funny is, like, in podcasting, I go the other way. I want my podcast to be good audio, and video I'm more forgiving of. But with
I used
TV
to
and
be
movies,
like-
it's different.
Actually, I used to be like Tom and Patrick. I both wanted good video and good audio. But once you have a kid, your eyes aren't always focused on the screen. In fact, it's probably no longer than 5 minutes before it's darted somewhere else. So I need to understand what's happening.
I just
so
gave
I
up
can-
on sleep. I just don't try to watch anything the kids can't watch while they're awake. And then,
Yeah.
because it's too frustrating for me to be interrupted when I'm watching stuff. So I just don't, if the kids are awake, there's either no television or it's kid friendly stuff. And we actually don't let them watch a lot of television.
Do you let them
much
have
as-
Oreos?
I do, not like every 5 minutes.
You know what?
But
I
they
won't.
also-
I won't let Ellie have Oreos.
There's a
but
story
I'll let
behind
her
why I
have-
asked that. I was just curious.
I was
I'll
like,
let her-
that's a little bit of a okay.
This is kind of snobby, but I'll let her have Numinos, but not Oreos.
Well,
Like,
when I was
Oreos are
growing,
really
this is so funny because
Yeah.
I got dinner with my cousin the other day, and we were remembering my Aunt Esther, her great grandma Esther, and I remember my grandma complaining that her daughter, my aunt, limited the television that the kids watched and wouldn't let them eat Oreos. And so she's like, well, I can't do anything about the television, but I always bring Oreos when I visit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And really funny. But I mean, I don't know. It's. I remember a friend of mine who was a bartender in New York City at this place I worked at in college called the Wetlands, and it was this weird mixture. There was punk, there was ska, and there was jazz, and there was a whole lot of Grateful Dead cover bands or Grateful Dead bands. It was like the first place Fish played in New York City when they started traveling outside of Vermont. Which isn't to say that Fish is a Dead cover band, but the audiences overlap. And but this woman was there in like full hippie mama mode with her little baby in the really loud nightclub in New York when people still smoked in nightclubs. And the little kid saw the cherry jar and was like deeply fascinated at while mom's like jamming out. And my friend, the bartender, goes to hand the small child a cherry, which, generally speaking, never hand anybody else's child food without permission.
Yeah.
But the woman like sees the cherry in the child's hand, smacks the cherry out of the child's hand, and starts screaming at him about trying to kill the child, who's out at 11 o'clock at night in a club with the cigarette smoke and the music up to 11, surrounded by 10,000 drunk, sweaty people.
Now,
jamming to the
was it
music.
an allergy?
No, it was because cherries have something in them that would cause
Oh.
like irreparable
The
harm to the
pits.
child.
like they
Yeah,
could choke
no.
on the pits. No, not even
There's
that.
no. This is a
No,
bar.
th-
a
this
little
was
red
a
cherry, from the bar.
non-evidentiary based.
Yeah, this
belief.
cherry was, but I think it was like the red dye was very upset. Like it was going to cause the child to.
Oh, it was like a maraschino or something.
So yeah, we eat a lot of organic food. We eat more vegetables than I ever were aware of existing as growing up as a Midwesterner, where there was canned vegetables or no vegetables. But the I let them eat junk food once in a while. It doesn't particularly bother me. So maybe I'm just a
I
terrible
wish I
parent.
The only vegetable Ellie will eat is a sweet potato.
Just
really
don't let her eat anything else for a couple days. I'll tell you what, those green beans will disappear, man.
No, she actually she still nurses a lot, so she won't. She'll just look at it. And she'll get really upset too.
What, you're
Like I
gonna
remember
starve
one
the cow
time I
and make her
fell
eat
asleep.
vegetables?
I was holding her on the couch and I fell asleep because I was really tired. She started tapping on my glasses like a bird, like trying to get to me like tat, 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 tat. Started shaking me.
I'm going to eat your
Very
eyes,
abusive
Father.
for a little girl. She really like just smacks us around.
Sorry.
This is like
Have you never seen Mean Girls? Didn't you go to junior high school?
it's
Why
a
is
lot of
this?
smacking, a lot of kicking? It's like,
Oh man.
but she watches a lot of YouTube because she likes the egg discovery videos.
I
missed the
don't
train on
let the
that.
kids. I don't let the kids watch YouTube anymore unless we're in the room with them. There's just, and it was horrifying to realize a lot of my suspicions were confirmed by somebody who's pointed out there's all these insane automated video generating services.
Oh, you missed our discussion
videos.
last week on just that topic.
I bet it was fantastic.
It was a bunch of us being like, well, that's disconcerting. Why are all these YouTube videos, sending messages to small children that are very, very uncool?
Because it takes a lot of clicks to make a living these days on YouTube.
Oh, man.
And if you got a bunch of 4-year-olds rapidly consuming your video, what you really need is more 4-year-olds rapidly consuming your video.
There are people who make an entire living on it. It's amazing. I have suggested to Tom, and I mean this sincerely. It's like we should totally do this. There are families that rake in a tremendous sum of money just by doing simple like counting videos and color videos.
I think it's probably, given the way the algorithm's been restructured, it's probably too late to start one of those channels, or maybe it's not. But I don't know. I just like the idea that the sort of the genesis of William Gibson's AI, continuity characters that generate all of the ongoing storylines, is basically coming out of a dark corner of YouTube with people creating word salad spam with automatic generated video.
All right, hold on. Breaking news. We just got an email to the Daily Tech News Show email box from someone, I'll keep the names out of it, asking if we would like to be part of a pie giveaway to benefit the victims of this year's California wildfires. And I'm like, man, you kind of hit me on two good points there. I'm very sympathetic to the wildfires, and I'm a huge fan of pie.
I think you should commit all available resources.
On behalf
to
of
this
Hometown
project.
Buffet, one of my cousins used to manage Hometown Buffet stores.
Well, I wasn't going to say the name, but there you go.
Pies.
I mean, pie.
'Tis the season for pie.
I don't know.
It is.
It's not endemic. We don't review pies.
I'd like
can't.
to, but
You
no, we
should.
don't do
I'm
that.
just saying, like, we could. We can also, can I get a free
DTNS
pie out of
Labs.
this, or is it just
Pie review.
the giveaway?
Wait a minute. Is it like a frozen pie? Like the kind you get in your supermarket aisle?
It's like a Marie Callender's kind of a place.
Yeah. It's totally like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
The best pie I've ever had was the what's that apple farm you used to drag everyone to?
Oh, it's over
Hills
where Sarah
Farm.
grew up. Yeah.
Which apple
Twin
farm
Hills
did you go
Ranch.
to?
Was,
We go to one in not Gravenstein.
the one before that, the Twin Hill.
Yeah, Twin Hills
Twin Hill Ranch? I went to
It's
Twin Hills
closed.
Middle School.
Oh,
Twin Hill
They
Ranch. I
they
grew up
made-
there.
They
Twin Hill
made
Ranch,
great apple pies.
as I understand now, is not the same anymore. They stopped making a lot of stuff that we used to get there. But yeah, Gravenstein apples. Good apple juice, good apple pie, and they had like a little candy thing for kids after school. So we'd go and get like fireballs and things that our parents wouldn't want us to eat.
Yeah, we go to Gabriel Farms now.
Oh, good
No
question.
apple
Nick with a
pies, though.
C says, question to Americans, when is Thanksgiving this year? A week from tomorrow, there will be no regular Daily Tech News Show, and same for Friday. There will be Daily Tech headlines in your feed, I don't know why I'm making so many gestures about it.
DTNS producer Roger Chang will be waiting in line.
I will be spending Thanksgiving eating a frozen pie alone with my cat. So if anybody wants me to just like turn on Google Hangouts, I'll do it. I have nothing else to do.
Do you want to come out and hang out with my family for Thanksgiving? I mean,
I was
it's
gonna
a
say,
drive.
you should come over to my house then, because we'll be at least having cooked pies.
No, I just my point is like
No.
You know, my Thanksgiving is blissfully empty.
I was gonna say, I mean, Sarah, if
and
you want to
I
do
know
a
lot of people have kind of been like, Sarah, that sounds kind of, and I'm like, oh, it's okay. That actually sounds kind of fun because I can just eat weird stuff alone.
Oh,
I can have a
kinda
jar of stuffing.
Charlie Brown
Covered
Thanksgiving.
in stuffing. Yeah.
Popcorn, toast.
Popcorn and toast. Two of my favorite Thanksgiving
just
meals.
like the original settlers had
like the
at the
Pilgrims.
first Thanksgiving.
The worst
Sir
Thanksgiving.
John, what should we eat?
Well, it's because
to
I also,
celebrate our
you know
host?
how on AMC they play the Godfather movies on Thanksgiving. I don't know how many years they've been doing this, but they've been
No, I
doing
didn't know that actually.
And I want to watch 1 and 2. Like that's what I want to do on Thanksgiving. And like,
That's pretty awesome.
you know, if you're
That
with
sounds
other
pretty
people,
fun.
that's fine. But it's more in the background. Like I want to sit there silently and watch the 2 movies. I don't want to watch the third one. But
No, I somebody's like, you're driving to CES. I'm like, I get to listen to music for 8 hours uninterrupted.
yeah.
Priceless.
Totally. It's like solitude has its merits.
Seriously. And by the way, we will be going to CES